You know how every year at work you have that dreaded annual performance review?
Oh, yeah, the absolute
Right.
worst.
You sit down and your manager pulls out this like highly detailed spreadsheet.
Usually with color-coded charts.
Exactly. And you go through these incredibly rigid metrics like, did you meet your Q3 deliverables? What are your core areas of growth?
And it's just this classic corporate check-in. It's entirely external.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so stressful.
Because it measures your worth based entirely on tangible earthly outputs. I mean, the focus is just exclusively on what you produced for the system over the last 12 months.
You're mostly just sitting there sweating, hoping you get a decent rating so you can, go back to your desk without getting
Right.
fired.
Just survive the meeting.
But imagine if instead of measuring your quarterly sales metrics or your project deadlines, you had a progress report for your soul.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, a literal spiritual checkup to see exactly where you stand in the grand scheme of the universe.
Like a literal rubric.
Complete with clear milestones telling you exactly how far you've come and what you need to do next. So welcome to this deep dive. Today we are putting you, the listener, right in the center of that spiritual performance review.
I love that framing.
And today's roadmap, it actually comes from this short, incredibly direct text. It was written by an author named Swefeng in April 2011, and it was translated and edited by Kinyu.
And the title is just perfectly blunt,
It really is. The title is See How Far You Are from Becoming a Celestial Being.
which is such a bold claim. And we should clarify early on that this title, it isn't meant to be like a vague poetic metaphor, because what makes this source material so compelling is exactly how it structures spirituality. I mean, usually when we discuss things like spiritual ascension or enlightenment, it's framed as this abstract, hazy.
He's impenetrable mystery, yeah.
Exactly. You just like meditate for a few decades and kind of hope for the best.
Hope you reach nirvana somehow.
Right. But Sweffing's text treats ascension as a tangible, stepped progression. It actually operates as a literal checklist.
It's a completely transparent roadmap. And the ultimate destination of this roadmap is something called the Celestial Islands continent.
Right.
So, okay, let's unpack this. Because
Yeah.
before we can figure out exactly where you are on this journey, we have to understand the map itself.
The lay of the land, so to speak.
Yeah. So Su Feng breaks celestial beings down into 5 distinct categories.
5 levels.
5 levels, yeah. We have ghost celestial beings, human celestial beings, land celestial beings, deity celestial beings, and finally, at the very top, super celestial beings.
It is a highly specific hierarchy.
Yeah.
And the text wastes absolutely no time in orienting the reader within it.
Right, because if we look at this hierarchy, like a video game skill tree or maybe a corporate ladder, the text immediately says right off the bat that we do not aspire to be ghost celestial beings.
Yeah, that's not the goal.
That's like the toxic entry-level job you actively want to avoid, like a bad character class in an RPG.
Right. Skip that entirely.
But then, on the flip side, it says the deity and super celestial beings, so let's call them the CEO and the board of directors, they are still completely out of reach for now.
So they're off the table. What's fascinating here is the psychological mechanism at play.
How do you mean?
Well, by explicitly taking the highest tiers, so the deity and super levels off the table for the time being, the text essentially prevents you from feeling overwhelmed.
Oh, that makes sense. Because it's a lot.
Think about why so many spiritual seekers just burn out. The gap between being a flawed, anxious mortal and a flawless divine being, it's just so massive that it induces a sort of paralysis.
You just feel like you can never get there, so why try?
Exactly. So by narrowing your focus to a much closer, achievable middle step, which is the human celestial being, it grounds the journey in reality. It makes the impossible feel doable by simply asking you to focus on the rung directly in front of you.
Which naturally brings up the obvious question, right? How do you know if you've actually reached that rung?
The performance metrics.
The metrics, yes. So the text lays out 8 very specific states of being to qualify as a human celestial being.
And they build on each other.
They really do.
Yeah.
Let's look at the first 2 because they deal entirely with the state of your mind. So state 1 requires severing earthly ties, detaching from the mortal realm, and having absolutely no hindrances in the mind.
Wow.
Yeah. And then state 2 requires having a clear consciousness, a bright and peaceful inner mind, and absolutely no chaotic thoughts.
I mean, those are incredibly demanding requirements, despite sounding so simple on paper.
They sound like impossible. In fact, I want to push back on this a little bit.
Go for it.
Because when I hear severing earthly ties and detaching from the mortal realm, my mind immediately pictures extreme isolation.
Like moving to a cave in the mountains.
Exactly. Is this like putting on the ultimate pair of noise-canceling headphones, closing your eyes and just aggressively ignoring the world around you?
Shutting it all out.
Yeah, because that sounds less like spiritual ascension and more like just completely shutting down and giving up on life.
And that is a very natural modern interpretation. We frequently associate the word detachment with apathy or just, avoidance.
Right?
But if we look really closely at the phrasing in Shuifeng's text, it pairs that detachment with a clear consciousness and a bright and peaceful inner mind.
Okay, so it's not just a blank slate.
No, not at all. This implies that the mechanism isn't about ignoring reality. It's about fundamentally changing how your brain actually processes reality.
But how does that actually work in practice, though? Like on a Tuesday when I'm stuck in traffic?
Well, think about the noise-canceling headphones analogy you just used.
Yeah.
How do those headphones actually create silence? They don't just block sound with thick layers of foam.
Oh, right. They have microphones. They use sound waves.
Exactly. They actively listen to the chaotic noise outside and produce an inverse sound wave to neutralize it. So when the text talks about eliminating chaotic thoughts, severing earthly ties in this context is really about neutralizing the attachments that cause that internal chaos in the first place.
So like the constant anxieties about money or social status or relationships.
Precisely. It is about creating a clean, unhindered foundation so that the mind can be genuinely bright and peaceful. It's cognitive decluttering.
Cognitive decluttering. I like that.
You are still out there in the world doing your thing, but the world is no longer creating chaos inside your head.
Okay, so you aren't running away from the world. You are just neutralizing the noise it makes in your mind.
Exactly.
But, I mean, if you completely clear your mind of all worldly anxieties and all earthly ties, aren't you just left with this massive void? Like, how do you keep from just feeling empty or entirely numb?
And that is exactly where the text moves next, because once that noise is gone, you have to establish a new emotional baseline, which is what is covered in the next 3 states.
Right, because states 3, 4, and 5, they describe this really profound emotional shift.
It's very dramatic.
So state 3 says life feels simple, with no worries, only joy and happiness.
Sounds nice.
And state 4 says you feel immersed in an ocean of love, filled with inner gratitude and excitement.
Excitement is a key word there.
Yeah. And state 5 is yearning for all things beautiful and actually feeling that beauty approaching you.
Now notice the deliberate progression of these states. We started by clearing out the negative, so all the chaotic thoughts, and now the void is being replaced with a very specific, elevated frequency.
But wait, let's look at state 5 for a second.
Okay.
Because it says you should be yearning for all things beautiful. Doesn't that directly contradict state 1?
How so?
Well, state 1 was all about severing earthly ties and having no attachments. Isn't yearning for something basically the exact definition of an earthly attachment?
Oh, that is a crucial distinction to make. That's a great point. So in many spiritual frameworks, and definitely in this one, an attachment is fundamentally rooted in fear.
Fear of what?
The fear of not getting what you want or the fear of losing what you already have.
Oh, right, like clinging to something.
Exactly. And that fear creates the chaotic thoughts we discussed in state 2. But yearning for beauty, as Shuifeng describes it here, isn't a possessive grip.
Okay.
It is a magnetic pull toward harmony. You aren't trying to capture and hoard beauty. You are actively orienting your consciousness toward it.
Wow. Okay, that reframes it completely. So it isn't a needy grasping. It's more of a forward-looking anticipation.
Yes.
Because the language here is incredibly active. Like you are filled with excitement and immersed in an ocean of love.
Which is very different from being a stone statue.
Right. When people usually discuss deep meditation or detachment, the goal often sounds like becoming this blank slate, a statue that feels absolutely nothing, just totally zen and flat. But this text suggests the exact opposite.
The word choice is highly intentional, immersed in an ocean of love. This demonstrates that becoming a human celestial being is the absolute antithesis of becoming emotionless.
It's supercharged emotion.
Right. For a normal mortal, our emotional baseline is often just this low-level stress, maybe colored by brief, fleeting moments of happiness. But for a human celestial being, the entire baseline shifts. That ocean of love and gratitude becomes the very environment you exist within.
So joy isn't something you just occasionally achieve.
No, it is the water you are swimming in.
Man, if I am walking around completely decluttered, floating in an ocean of love and excitement, how does that actually change the way I make decisions?
That's a real test.
Like, does it make me reckless in the real world? Because the final three states of the human celestial, they deal with how you actually interact with life.
The gameplay mechanics, so to speak.
Yeah, the gameplay. So state 6 is going with the flow. So adapting to circumstances naturally without attachments. State 7 is feeling that all of life is a fun game and wanting to be immersed in entertainment and games.
Yeah.
And state 8 is being completely unbothered by life and death or honor and disgrace and just being content to keep walking the path. And here's where it gets really interesting to me.
So, yeah.
State 7, treating life as a fun game.
It is a radical reframing of human existence.
It really is. I'll be honest, it's super easy to say life is a game when you're sitting on a mountaintop meditating.
Sure.
But if I lose my job, I can't pay my rent. The bank does not care if I think life is a fun game.
They really don't.
They want their money. So how does this text reconcile this celestial, game-like mindset with the very real, brutal pressures of earthly survival?
And that is the ultimate test of this philosophy. To understand it, we really have to look closely at state 8, which pairs life and death with honor and disgrace.
Okay, honor and disgrace.
Right. The text isn't telling you to stop paying your rent or to ignore survival. It is telling you to detach your identity and your self-worth from the outcome of those events.
So the event happens, but it doesn't define you.
Exactly. Think about why losing a job is so devastating. Yes, there is the practical issue of money, obviously, but the deepest, most lingering pain usually comes from the ego.
The embarrassment of it.
The disgrace of failure, the loss of your social status.
That makes a lot of sense. The suffering is mostly the story we tell ourselves about the event, rather than just the event itself.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, think about an open-world video game.
Okay, yeah.
When do you actually have the most fun playing a game? It's not when you are stressing over every single point, terrified of making a single mistake.
No, that's incredibly stressful.
Right. The fun happens when you realize there are no real-world consequences to your character's stats. So you explore, you try new crazy strategies, and you just enjoy the mechanics of the game.
Because you aren't terrified of losing your score.
Because you aren't paralyzed by the concept of honor and disgrace, which is your score in real life, you are finally free to just experience the world. So if a human celestial loses their job, they simply adapt to the new circumstance, which is state 6, going with the flow.
They just play the next level.
Exactly. They play the next level without the crushing weight of their ego dragging them down.
Wow. So the lack of fear actually makes you better at navigating the world? It doesn't make you more reckless, it makes you more adaptable.
Highly adaptable.
So let's say someone actually pulls this off. They mentally check off all 8 boxes.
For them.
Right. They have the clear mind, the ocean of love, the game-like approach to life, and absolutely zero fear of honor or disgrace. They are officially a human celestial being. What is the next rung on this ladder?
Well, the text immediately introduces the next level, which is the land celestial being. And the requirement for this step introduces a completely new dimension to the journey.
Yeah, because to become a land celestial being, you need all 8 of those mental and emotional states we just spent all this time unpacking.
Yeah.
But you also need a physical upgrade.
Yes.
The text explicitly says you must enjoy good health, a vibrant spirit, and the vitality of youth. And I just have to say, I really appreciate that flesh and blood actually matter here.
It's rare in these texts.
It is. So many spiritual texts treat the physical body like this annoying, gross meat sack that you just have to, like, drag around until your soul finally escapes.
An earthly prison, yeah.
Exactly. But Shufeng includes physical vitality as a core requirement for ascension.
It creates a deeply holistic synergy between the mind and the body. And if we look at this through a modern physiological lens, the causality makes perfect sense.
How so?
Well, imagine genuinely achieving the 8 states of a human celestial being.
Okay.
You experience zero stress, you harbor absolutely no chaotic thoughts, your baseline is constant flowing joy, and you have entirely eliminated the fear of social disgrace or death.
I would sleep so well.
Exactly. The biological cascade resulting from that psychological state would be profound. Without the constant cortisol spikes of chronic anxiety, your immune system functions optimally.
Right.
Your sleep is deep and restorative. The vitality of youth and good health aren't magical traits just mysteriously bestowed upon you. They're the natural biological byproducts of absolute mental mastery.
So the physical upgrade is basically the lagging indicator of the emotional shift.
The body literally heals because the mind stops attacking it with stress.
That is a fascinating way to look at it. And the reward for hitting this mind-body combination is massive, because the text promises that having become both a human and a land celestial being, you will undoubtedly reach the 1,000-year world.
And that phrase, the 1,000-year world, is a very powerful motivator within this text.
But what exactly is it? Like, is it a literal physical destination on the map? Or a promise of an extended lifespan? Or is it just a metaphor for a really peaceful state of mind?
Well, based purely on the context of Xu framework, it functions as a guaranteed realm or era of elevated existence.
Okay.
So whether it's interpreted as a literal prolonged lifespan of 1,000 years or a dimensional destination tied to that celestial island's continent, it represents a monumental expansion of the human experience.
But you've leveled up completely out of the normal boundaries.
Exactly. Once you conquer the chaos of the mind and achieve the physical vitality of the land celestial, your existence is no longer bound by typical mortal limits. You essentially graduate into a broader, enduring state of harmony.
That sounds incredible. Which naturally brings us to the most practical dilemma for anyone listening right now.
How to actually do it.
Right. How do I actually get there? If I want to clear my mind, achieve this vitality, and reach the 1,000-year world, what is the exact method?
The manual.
Yeah. Do I need to quit my job, move to a monastery, and read 100 ancient scrolls? Do I need to master complex meditation postures that hurt my knees? Because this is where Suifan takes a hard left turn, and he argues the exact opposite of what you might expect.
The critique of orthodox spiritual traditions in this text is incredibly sharp, and it is uncompromising.
Oh, it's brutal. Suifan states that in the past, people focused heavily on acquiring vast amounts of knowledge, studying complex theories, and practicing what he calls mystical methods and arts.
Right, the typical grind of enlightenment.
Yeah, and the result of all that effort, not only did they fail to become celestial beings, but the text literally says they wasted their lives.
Ouch.
That is a brutal assessment of traditional spirituality.
Yeah.
So what is Xu Feng's proposed method? It is simply following the guide day by day.
That's it.
The text describes this path as fascinating, not complex, and definitely not difficult. You just walk the path, take it day by day, and suddenly you discover you have unknowingly gone very far.
It is a striking departure from paths that demand decades of grueling asceticism or intense academic study of scriptures or, painful physical disciplines.
So what does this all mean for someone navigating the modern world today?
Well, what do you think?
To me, this feels incredibly relevant to the burnout we see everywhere today.
Yeah.
We live in an era of massive information overload, right?
Absolutely.
And that has bled directly into the self-help and spiritual spaces. People feel like they have to optimize their entire morning routine. They have to read 50 self-improvement books a year, track their sleep cycles with wearable tech.
Master 3 different types of complex breath work.
Yes, just to be a functional human, let alone an enlightened one. But this text is essentially offering an anti-hustle spirituality. It's suggesting that all that agonizing striving is actually the trap.
That is a brilliant framework, the anti-hustle path. Because if we trace the logic of the text, torturing yourself with complex theories actually creates more chaotic thoughts.
Which directly violates state 2.
Exactly. The author explicitly frames that heavy theoretical striving as a literal waste of the life you have been given. According to this roadmap, the evidence that you are on the right path is not how many books you have memorized or how much you are suffering for your enlightenment.
Right.
The evidence is that everything gradually becomes clearer and that joy and happiness accompany you along the way. The ease and the joy of the journey are the actual proof that the method is working.
You don't suffer your way to becoming a celestial being. You joyfully stroll there.
A joyful stroll.
I love that. So let's look back at this spiritual progress report we've gone through today.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did.
Yeah.
We started by looking at the corporate ladder to the celestial island's continent. We learned to avoid that toxic entry-level ghost celestial status, and instead we aimed for the achievable middle management, which is the human celestial being.
Right.
And that required neutralizing the chaotic noise from our minds, shifting our emotional baseline to an ocean of love and a yearning for beauty, and fundamentally changing our relationship with failure by realizing that life is a game without the heavy, crushing consequences of honor or disgrace.
And we explored how mastering those internal mental states naturally lowers the body's stress response.
A physical upgrade.
Exactly, leading to the physical vitality required of a land celestial being. And this combination guarantees entry into the prolonged existence of the thousand-year world. And perhaps most importantly, all of this is achieved not through agonizing study or complex mysticism, but through a joyful, guided, anti-hustle approach.
It's amazing. But there is one massive loose end.
Yeah.
What about the top of the ladder? What about those deity and super celestial beings that were, taken off the table at the very beginning of the text? When do we reach those?
Well, Siefeng leaves us on a cliffhanger.
He does. The text concludes by simply saying, "Continue to follow me, and in due time I will tell you."
It is a masterful grounding conclusion because it keeps the focus entirely on the present journey. You don't need the final answers to walk the path today.
Right. So as you go back to your day, think back to the metaphor we started with, the annual performance review, only this time you aren't being judged by an external boss on stressful, arbitrary metrics. You have a completely different rubric for success.
And this raises a really important question to leave you with.
What's that?
Well, if absolute mental peace, unshakable physical vitality, and treating human existence as a joyous, consequence-free game only qualifies you for the middle tier, the human celestial, what unimaginable reality-bending state of being do you think makes up the super celestial tier?
Completely different scale of existence to ponder. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time.